What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
So there is a lot of talk drumming up now that Suga Sean O'Malley is a UFC champion about a potential crossover boxing match with Gervonta Davis. Now, when I first heard this, I was like, there's no way that this is going to happen. Sugar's going to get knocked out by Gervonta Davis. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, he does possess a lot of boxing skill. It would at least be somewhat competitive. And in a lot of ways, Gervonta Davis has very much mirrored the career of Floyd Mayweather. Floyd is like a mentor to him, and Floyd boxed Conor. And then also in a lot of ways, Suga Sean, even though he's got a different vibe, he's modeling Conor's career. He's kind of created a personality for himself. He operates within that personality. And then most importantly, he wins by emphatic TKO or KO. And so there's a lot of similarities you could draw between the two. Now, Floyd Mayweather was way out of his prime when he boxed Conor McGregor and was still able to get the job done. So my question to you is, what do you think the likelihood of Suga versus Gervonta happening inside of a boxing ring is? And then on top of that, if you do think it's likely, what are the chances that it is actually a competitive match?
Well, I think it's very likely that we see this fight happen. Now, you have to remember, Francis Ngannou was really interested in getting a boxing match when he was signed to the UFC, but the UFC didn't really want to see that happen. They didn't really know where they were going to do it, what sort of rule set it was, and now that he's got bad blood with the UFC and they have no business with each other anymore, I personally think Dana White and the rest of the guys at the UFC would like to maybe stick it to Francis a little bit by letting Suga Sean, a true star, a now champion who's really good with his hands, go out there and do what Conor McGregor did with Floyd Mayweather, which in everybody's eyes was a very historic night for combat sports. And I just feel like timing is on Suga and Gervonta's side for this one. So you've got two guys who are very, very dominant in their sports, right? They've got really great records. If Gervonta Davis is somewhere in the 23, 24-0 with just under that amount of knockouts. I mean, he's sleeping everybody he's fighting. And Suga Sean has one loss, but, he likes to dispute that. And I think everybody else pretty much sees him as an undefeated fighter. So I think Gervonta and Suga really need to capitalize on this situation. When they look back on their careers as older men, they're not going to say, oh man, I'm really glad I got that 6th title defense for Gervonta, or, oh, I'm really glad I went up and fought this boxer who didn't drum up any drama for me. It wasn't really a crazy pay-per-view, a type of event or anything like that. I think Suga Sean's going to say, man, I did some really cool stuff in this sport. And Gervonta Davis wants to say the same thing. And I have to say, if you ask Conor McGregor or Floyd Mayweather what one of the most memorable nights in their career was, it was fighting each other. It was super interesting. That whole worldwide press conference tour was really fun for the fans. They really got the MMA world and the boxing world feuding with each other online, and that was a lot of fun. And I think people would like to see that sort of situation played out again, but not with Conor and Floyd. I think we need two guys, and these are the right two guys to do it. Same weight class, both great knockout artists. Suga Sean is not a grappler coming over to box somebody in just a total mismatch. He's actually a really good striker who favors his hands more than anything else. Also, on top of that, he's about a 6-foot-tall fighter, and Gervonta Davis is about 5'4". So you're talking about a huge size discrepancy, and even though Suga Sean does not have a ton of boxing experience, and he certainly isn't the boxer that Gervonta Davis is, I actually like his chances in this a lot.
No way.
I love it.
You think Suga Sean could actually compete with Gervonta Davis?
I'd love to see the money line come out on this, because I know there'd be some people putting some serious bets on Suga Sean, and he's done some great things in the world. But if he could sleep Gervonta Davis, I think you'd be talking about a mega superstar.
Well, I do think the fight would be competitive. I do think it would be a lot of fun. The build-up and press conferences would be a lot of fun. I'm not to where you are to say that I think Suga can beat Gervonta in a boxing match. Now, if it were to be an MMA match, first-round TKO knockout, Suga Sean wins all day long. Gervonta does not possess the skills to defeat Suga in the cage.
Right.
That is also why, by the way, every one of these crossover matchups have happened inside the Queensberry rules, inside of a boxing ring.
Right.
Boxing is a fun sport. It's my second favorite sport to MMA, and a lot of boxers like to talk a big game, but so far none of them have stepped foot inside of the octagon, with the exception of Clarissa Shields. Credit to her.
Yeah.
And but even still, she's not competing at the highest levels.
Right.
Obviously, if she were to take on Amanda Nunes, it would be a whole different story. So Obviously, these fights are going to happen inside the boxing ring for now until somebody steps up. And inside the confines of the Queensberry rules, I see Gervonta being able to eventually get a finish over Suga Sean if it were to happen. Now, I do think Sean can be like Conor and make it interesting for 5, 6, 7 rounds. I think that Sean can actually win rounds against Gervonta, especially if he can work behind his jab and use that length. He's going to come with awkward movement that Gervonta's not used to seeing with the traditional boxers, and I think he can snag a few rounds. The problem is with Gervonta, it only takes one mistake. He's like Deontay Wilder packed into a little man's body, and he's got crazy power. He's got the same knockout ratio of Deontay, or even better.
Right.
So for that reason, I think that ultimately it would be a victory for Davis, but more importantly, it would be a victory for the fans, and I think it'd be a fight that a lot of people would be interested in seeing.
Absolutely, and these two guys are great entertainers. You know, Gervonta has that it factor. He's not somebody that's constantly in your face online talking, you know, and having to drum up drama. He just has that it factor, and people want to see him fight. And I think that everything that Floyd Mayweather has taught him has shown him that, look, this is about prize fighting, and we want to fight for the biggest prizes. And while there are some great names for him to fight in between 130 and 140 in boxing, you're talking about a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go in there against a UFC champion. And you have to remember, Suga is the world champion right now. So this only works if we've got a UFC champion and the biggest name in lighter weight boxing, which is Gervonta Davis, going at it at this current time in their lives. And just like you said, if they fought in MMA, Suga Sean would finish him within 1 minute of the very first round, and he could do it any way he wanted to. He could choke him to sleep. He could kick his legs out from under him and have Gervonta laying on the floor begging for him to stop. He could, you know, spinning heel kick, send that to his temple and put him right to sleep. But if they fight in a boxing match, I think Gervonta Davis would have his hands full for the first few rounds and would likely taste his very first defeat in about round 6, 7, or 8 from Suga Sean O'Malley.
That is an insane prediction, but if the fight materializes and you end up being right, we will give you all the credit.
Let's go.